everyone, and we are live. All right, hey everyone, and welcome to our 20th episode of KC Reacts Live. We are excited to have y'all here this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. I am Chris Barrett,
And I'm Kevin
and
Hammer. I'm Kevin
and
Hammer.
there you go. And yeah, so looking forward to this one. This is kind of an interesting episode because a lot of attention is paid to certain aspects of how the transgender movement is affecting people, but not a lot of attention really is affected on how it's maybe affecting men too. So
Mhm.
I'm glad that we're going to be taking care of that tonight.
And I do want to mention quick, if anyone watching, please let us know how the audio is for you. I'm hearing a bit of it sounds almost like a frog ribbit a little bit. Let me know if you hear anything. I will check in periodically with our viewers to see if they are hearing anything. But with that, we are going to jump into it because, as Chris said, we have become quite accustomed, unfortunately, to the trans agenda targeting women and children, of course, which we'll focus a bit on the children in our last video. But right now, we are actually focusing on how the trans agenda has turned itself in the direction of men and how it's basically trying to lay claim to what being a man is. As you can see here, the title of our stream is Transmania, the War on Men. And this here is actually from a article, Toxic Masculinity Has Warped Our Culture. Trans men are showing the path forward. All right. So with
Yeah,
that,
the
we're
hell
actually
they are.
so with that, we're gonna go to right here. So this article is actually from LGBTQ Nation, which for those of you who are not aware, LGBTQ Nation is an LGBT publication, of course. And once again, here you have it. Toxic masculinity has warped our culture. Trans men are showing the path forward. They're showing a path, all right, but it's more likely off a cliff. Vinny, I want to quickly say, Vinny, hey, glad to have you in the comments. Hey, Vinny, you're great at this. Please let us know if there's any audio issues. I'm only asking because I'm hearing a little bit of like a kind of like a frog sound on my end. Please let us know. So with that though, we are actually gonna just review a little bit of this article and just overall what it very much is saying here. So once again, this is an article. It's LGBTQ Nation. Toxic masculinity has warped our culture. Trans men are showing the path forward. All right. Okay. Oh, come on. There we go. Oh, wait, no, wrong one. There we go. All right. So, all right. I'm just going to read this and we're going to discuss it. The July-August issue of LGBTQ Nation explores what trans men teach us about masculinity. The stories, mostly written by trans men themselves, elevate trans male
Women,
voices above the current
women.
conservative crusade. I know, right? Women, of course. Conservative crusade that is crazed with policing trans women. One of the men will discuss how his mind and behavior gradually moved from a female point of view to a male one, even while his body still reflected feminine aspects, which it always will. Another will discuss how he happily retains different aspects of his femininity. Isn't that interesting how they just can keep whatever they want? They never have to fully commit. Even
No.
while becoming a visible public advocate for trans men. So, Chris, what do you have to say about this?
Well, I mean, LGBTQ Nation. I mean, the name already says it right there. They're LGBTQ. You know, they are obviously thinking that there is somehow some relationship between lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, and so-called queer, or whatever that means. According to them, whatever day of the week that they decide what Q means. Um,
but one of the men will discuss how his mind and behavior. No, this is woman. What this is, Kevin, in my mind, is this is feminism gone insane.
Yep. Absolutely. And it's interesting, right? Because when you got the trans woman identity, right, you have, funny enough, ironically, the patriarch winning out a little bit, right? Proving that men, even in women's sports, here you have, when it comes to so-called trans men, you have feminism gone awry. And with that, we're going to move on to the second uh, screenshot from this article, because this one is especially amusing in my opinion. All right. This I love. I love this one, Chris. All right. There's no way to become a man. There's no one way to become a man. Yes, there is. You're born a man. If anything, the so-called online manosphere and current political culture of toxic masculinity have left many men and boys feeling angry, unfulfilled, and yearning for a stronger, more benevolent type of masculinity. No, 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 no. Looking for a stronger type of masculinity, yes. Benevolent? All right. You mean weak by that, by the way. That feels more
Hmm.
authentic and inclusive of different kinds of power. Transgender men are giving us that. Assigned a different gender at birth, not assigned. Trans men are often socialized into girlhood and pressured into denying their masculine inclinations. So basically, they were tomboys.
Hmm.
While the seemingly contradictory or toxic rules and rituals of cis masculinity may feel like a daily hardship, the transition can also be quite rapturous reclamation of the brotherhood they've long sought, mixed with queering of what it means to be a man. Yeah, you're right. The queering of what it means to be a man. Chris, I'm gonna throw this to you quick. What's your take on this?
It's such a load of crap, and I mean, I would expect nothing less from LGBTQ nation. Transgender men. I'm sorry, they're not men. These are women that we're talking about. The idea of assigned a gender. No one's assigned a gender. Either they are men or otherwise they are women. And it's very obvious at birth. So no one's assigned anything. This idea of assigned a gender at birth is ridiculous. You
Yeah,
know, and then yeah, you're right, Kevin. I mean, they are really playing into this idea of, let's take the tomboys and turn them into men.
exactly.
And yeah, and that's really what's going on here.
And
You
I
know,
really
they're talking about, like, pressured into denying their masculine inclinations. Well, I'll give you that, naturally speaking, most men are masculine, most women are feminine. But, there can be some overlap, and there's nothing wrong with that. But just because a woman acts a little masculine, or just because a man acts a little feminine, it doesn't mean that they're the freaking opposite sex.
Chris, I decided to listen to the audio myself. I was because I'm hearing, like I said, I'm getting that frog sound. But no, absolutely. And Chris, I think that the most I think there's a line in this that sums it up the best. And let me know if you agree with this. So at the end there, it says a brotherhood they've long sought, mixed with a joyous queering of what it means to be a man. And I think that right there is ultimately their goal, right? The queering, the making of, the twisting of what it means to be a man. That is the goal of this agenda at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, just as much as they're trying to twist what it means to be a woman. I mean, when it comes to the so-called trans woman, which is you know, just men. And, you know, brotherhood. I'm sorry. I'll never share a brotherhood with a woman. Period. Ever.
Right.
That's never gonna
Well,
happen.
with that, we're going to jump into our first clip, folks. Once again, please let us know if you're hearing us clearly. Now, our first clip, oh goodness. Do you remember, if y'all watched it, Dylan Mulvaney did this whole thing about making the bulge, making it okay for trans women to show the bulge, right? Well, this clip is the opposite of that, right? This is about apparently being a man and having no bulge. So let's just dive into this. By the way, it's
Oh yes, this
visually,
one made me
guys.
laugh
Yeah.
so hard.
Oh goodness. Let's jump into it.
For a lot of trans mass people, we have the same issue, which is that if you buy men's underwear, then it has a double enforced pouch for and like a thin piece of fabric where your is, which will just be destroyed. Right now, I have the For Them jock strap and very little else. It's really comfortable. The fabric is thick. We love it. No pouch. Ideal. I'm honestly typically incredulous of like, oh, this is a product that's for queer people, but this like actually is.
Right. Okay. There's the pouch, right? But then there's no pouch. Isn't that? Oh goodness, I can't even. I can't. I genuinely can't. This is
It's
insane.
so stupid, Kevin. I mean, it is so stupid. For who has any question, that person with the fucking chipmunk voice, like they all freaking have, you know, is a woman. That's
She
what that
is. Yeah.
is. That's a woman over there. And anyway, she's wearing a jockstrap. Why? Why, honey? You know, you don't need it. There, you know, there is a reason that jockstrap exists, and generally speaking, they were invented for athletics. And it's because men actually, you know, have something there.
Yeah.
You don't.
Exactly.
You,
Exactly. And we're
you have you have your vagina down there.
gonna
And there
get
is
there
absolutely
soon
no
too.
reason for a woman to be wearing a jock strap. And that's
Yeah.
all it is. You know, the little
Hmm.
chipmunk voice there, you
Yeah.
know, because that's what they
It's a
all have.
costume.
Yeah,
It's
we've
wearing
heard that
manhood as a
from,
costume.
yeah, we heard it from Chase Strangio. What a
Yeah.
name,
Oh,
by the
so by
way.
the way, Chris, Vinny is saying that every time you speak, it sounds like a frog. He's actually asking what that noise is and doing LOL. Maybe it's the earbud. Is the earbud feeding through or something like that? I wonder.
Well, it's switching back and forth. It's switching back and forth. It's weird. It's like it's switching from my iPad back here. I'll tell you what. Just for the sake of this podcast and to keep things going well, give me a second. I'm going to hop out. I'm going to redo this on my computer, and I think that it'll be better because, as you guys know, I'm on a beta version of Apple's OS on the
Yeah,
iPad, and
absolutely.
it is better. At least now it doesn't cut me out entirely.
Yeah,
But
so guys, I'm just gonna talk to you a little bit while Chris jumps out quick. He'll be right back. So yeah, everyone. I mean, what's your take on this in the comments? I mean, clearly here we have right no pouch right there, no pouch right, because that's clearly you know an aspect of being a man is not having a pouch. I don't know. I think this is, and it's for them. So the jockstrap is for them, not for him. It is for them. Personally, I find this to just be absolutely insane. You know, it really is making being a man into a costume. And my personal perspective, you know for a fact that if this was done in any other fashion outside of sex, right? I mean, we have these types right here. Police us during Halloween saying if you're white, you can't wear the Native American costume, right? The Indian costume. You can't do this, right? You can't do any of these things. You can't do the cultural appropriation. That you can't do. But you can appropriate what being a man. You can appropriate being a woman. And that, in my opinion, is absolute insanity. And it just shows how insane the left is, how insane trans ideology is. Because the logic that we see at play here is completely inconsistent. I'm going to go in a little bit later, once Chris is back on here, about some experiences I've had where I've been called transphobic because I said I'd not be with a quote unquote trans man, right? I would not be with this woman right here that you see on the screen. First of all, at the end of the day, while you could argue that there, of course, are feminine looking men, I look at this face and I very much see, unquestionably, I see a woman. Especially with, as Chris, and Chris is back, as Chris described it, that chipmunk voice, right? Chris, I was just explaining a little bit about my views on this and how we're going to get into later, obviously, like, for example, I've been called transphobic for saying that I would never be with a trans man. So, yeah.
I mean, I'm homosexual for a reason. All right, and that's a woman. I can
Exactly.
tell that's a woman. I can tell by her stupid little chipmunk voice that has been modified a little bit because she's been on testosterone, and I can certainly see that there is nothing going on down there in between the legs other than, a vagina. Certainly not interested in that either, and the simple fact is she has a woman's personality, and we
Yeah.
could tell that. We can tell that. And, as a homosexual person, I'm attracted to masculinity, in whatever form it may come in, because I mean, some men are not necessarily masculine. They may be effeminate to a certain degree. Um, and we certainly have seen that, we see that among gay people, for sure, and there's nothing wrong with that. That is totally fine. But the thing is that male mentality is still actually there,
Exactly.
even if they are, effeminate.
Yep.
But this thing over here, it is, and I'm not going to even give it the benefit of being called, you know a person, because it's like because that is what it has done to itself. It has turned itself into an it, then you know it's ridiculous. It's had its breasts removed. It's sitting there having it wearing a jock strap for absolutely no reason, because it has no reason to wear one, and it is I mean, it's disgusting, I mean. And here's the thing. Maybe a lesbian, maybe. This is just a big
Well,
maybe.
Chris, that's the thing. That's the thing. When you look at this face, I actually look at this face personally and see a butch lesbian. That is what I see.
Well,
I don't.
a
I don't
lesbian,
see.
yeah, a lesbian might find
Right.
this thing attractive, maybe. And that is a
Yeah.
maybe,
So
because I mean, there's plenty of lesbians that also aren't quite cool with this crap either. But I'll bet you
absolutely.
I'll bet you anything. The fact that this thing is doing this is, wearing a jock strap and all that type of stuff. I bet you anything this is a heterosexual woman. I bet you anything
Oh.
it is.
Oh. Yeah. I bet you this one right here tries to hit up on gay men and then gets upset if they don't return the affections. With that, I do want to go to the comments quick because Vinny actually made a comment that I want to point out something. So Vinny said, even if this is a real man, I wouldn't date him. I like guys who look like Hagrid and Santa Claus. And if you research these types, I'm not alone with this interest. Now, what's interesting, and Chris, we got to do a whole episode just
Vinny,
focusing on.
you are special in many
Yeah, but
wonderful
no,
ways.
Vinny, right? Vinny, I don't know if you're watching the episode where we had a clip from Trans Santa. There is, I don't know, Chris, how well you remember that that woman, but there is a podcaster out there, makes video content, a woman who has a white beard, looks like Santa. I'm not gonna lie. The woman looks like Santa. You definitely would never think woman passing this individual on the street. So we definitely got to do a whole episode, and I'm gonna call it Trans Santa. Actually, we might do that in December. I think that would be amusing. Anyways, with that, with that, we're gonna move on from having no pouch, because of course that's manly, to what I consider to be a really bad acting. Like, all right, people, have y'all watched, obviously y'all watch probably those HR videos, right, on sexual harassment, right? And you know how bad the acting is, right? Like someone pretends to drop something and they're like, oh, can you grab that for me? And the person bends over and they go, oh yeah, that's sexy, right? Like that is how they mimic sexual harassment in the workplace. All right. That acting comes across top notch compared to what we're going to show you right now. This is an engagement between a trans man, so a woman, and a biological man, so a real man. This is the setup they have, and with no further delay, let's get into this.
You're a cisgender man, and I'm a transgender man, and we're both real men.
That's so offensive. Stop calling me that. I'm a man. A real man.
Yes, both are true. You are cisgender, and you are a man.
But I'm a real man. Why did you say I'm cisgender?
Cisgender is just an adjective that we add to man or to woman, and it just means that you identify as a gender you were assigned at birth. It's not an attack. I don't identify as a gender I was assigned at birth, and that makes me transgender.
Oh, okay.
And being a trans man doesn't make me any less of a man than you are.
Yeah, but you weren't born a man, and I was.
Manhood isn't based on what you were assigned at birth or your genitalia. If you lost your penis, would you still be a man?
Yeah?
See?
All right.
Oh,
So,
God.
Chris, I gotta jump on this one quick for two reasons. Two freaking
go right
reasons
ahead,
here.
buddy.
Oh my goodness. Oh, just first of all, okay, the acting, once again, I'm sorry, the acting is just absolutely horrific. And just that use of assign, right? Of assign. And they just said that your genitalia doesn't, define your gender. And as so many have said, if genitalia doesn't define gender, then how does the removing of that genitalia or breasts or whatever affirm it, right? If it doesn't define it, then why are you removing it? So there's first that. But then second, I have actually been asked this question at the end, that this woman asked that man, right? If you were to lose your penis, would you still be a man? All right, but it's in a different context. I had a conversation once with a lefty, right? And I said, no, I would never be with a trans man. And they said, and I'm, because, well, at the time, we were just engaged. Me and my husband were just engaged. And they go, well, what if, heaven forbid, the guy you're with, if something were to happen and he were to lose his penis, are you saying he'd lose you, that you'd leave him? I said, yeah. Heaven forbid, if such an accident occurred, you know what my man still wouldn't have? He still wouldn't have a vagina. No. Even if he somehow tragically lost his penis, right? He wouldn't have a vagina. And so it just drives me nuts when she asked him that question at the end, because I'm like, oh, it is the dumbest question. It really is. If you were to lose your penis, would you suddenly not be a man? No, he would still be a man, but he also wouldn't have a vagina. Unlike you have a vagina. You are a woman, right?
Well,
About you,
and
Chris.
it goes a little bit back to the thing that I said in the other clip. It's like you don't have a male's mentality, period. I mean, listening to this thing talk, it's very clear that it's a woman, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and, men would never communicate this way. Even the most effeminate gay man would never communicate this way.
Yeah.
And so, this thing, and I'm almost getting done talking about them in the terms that they want to talk about, because they want to talk about themselves as men or women or whatever. And it's like, no, you guys have turned yourselves into its and things. That's what you've turned yourselves into.
Mm-hmm.
And so this thing, wants to be recognized as a man. Okay, fine. But you know what? The simple fact is just sitting here watching this, they wouldn't have even needed to be talking about being trans. I would have
Yeah.
recognized that this thing was really a woman,
So would I. You
right,
want to know why?
right away. And so the thing is if my husband lost his penis for some reason, which by the way, it is stupid when they bring that up, because how often does that ever happen? You know? And but let's say he did. The simple fact is he's still a freaking man. Honey, you've got a vagina. You are not a man. You'll never be a man. Period.
I, and Chris, for me personally, as I was listening to her speak, more and more, and that is the one thing, right? Like, I'm not saying that there aren't individuals who, on first sight, can't fool you, right? Either way, either way, there are. But as a conversation goes on, 99% of the time, you start to hear the woman come out. Because even a
Oh
gay
yeah.
man doesn't talk like this and sound like this. As I was listening to her speak, I started to see the inflections, hear my sister, right? It was like talking to the women in my life. Maybe a soft butch lesbian, but I was not like I would not have a conversation with this individual and think, oh, this is a man. I wouldn't.
No, because the mentality is not there. That's the whole thing. That's what I'm talking about. It's like, honey, what you're missing is this thing is making it truly about genitalia and that sort of thing by bringing up the fact that it's talking about being a man missing his penis, and so therefore is he a man or not? No, you're missing the point, you stupid thing. You
Yeah.
are a obviously a woman, because your mentality is that of a woman. And I
Mhm.
guess that's the point that I'm trying to say is male mentality and female mentality are two totally different things. And we as homosexuals recognize that very
Yep.
much so. And,
Mhm.
I'm sure straight people do too. But I certainly know as a homosexual, I can easily pick out what is truly a man, for sure. You know,
Yeah. And that's the thing is, it really is. I mean, they think they're fooling, but then also, Chris, we remember as we've discussed before, there's the default setting, right? When trans people, you know, get angry, emotional, quite often, more than 90% of the time, they revert to what I like to just describe as the default setting. You will
hmm
you will see and hear, mostly hear, a quote unquote trans woman suddenly sound like this. And you will see and hear a trans man suddenly go like just like stop being mean to me. Like it is this. It's like it's the default setting, and
Mm-hmm.
I have yet to really be proven wrong with this, because
Oh
when they
no.
get really angry or really upset, the default setting is triggered.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, they show what they really are. You know, the vast majority of men. And I'm not going to say it's going to be 100% of the time, but the vast majority of men are going to become angry and aggressive if they feel like they're being attacked. The vast majority of women, if they feel like they're being attacked, they may become angry, but they'll become so angry that they start crying
Yeah.
and that sort of
So
thing.
in the future, Chris, and we're gonna move on to the next video, folks, because this one I actually my heart kind of goes out to the young girl. I actually kind of feel bad for her. You can really sense the turmoil within her. But there is a video that went viral of a very flamboyant man at a convenience store, I think purchasing a drink or something, and he's talking like this, like, oh yeah, and then the cashier says something to upset him, and he's like, what the like it really suddenly the voice gets deeper, and it's very like, so it's actually funny, and I'm gonna play that sometime. It went viral a while back, but it really is the default setting, and as Vinny said in the comments, the default setting never lies. So with that, we're gonna go to our next video, and like I said, in this one, my heart goes out a bit to this young woman, because she is so young and so lost, and you can really feel it, and see it as you're watching this clip. So let's just get into that.
Like in terms of you rebranding your masculinity and then in turn working that into, your job and your life and all that as well.
It was funny because I kind of just like eased back into it. It wasn't ever like oh, okay, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm gonna use he him pronouns again. Like it kind of just like I slowly started aligning more with a masculine identity because it was my own version of a masculine identity. I kind of like unaligned myself from it because I felt like this cis version no longer aligns with who I want to be.
Yeah.
So when I started to realize that I didn't align with the cis version of myself and that cis guy I wanted to be, it was like a full 180 because I didn't have the tools to like really understand what that meant. So I was just like, oh, okay, this means that I must be non-binary, and I did really identify in that place of like I don't want to have a gender right now. And I also did identify a little bit in that place with the feminine side of myself because I feel like as trans men, a lot of the times we erase that femininity. We erase the version of ourselves that we were. It's like that girl is gone. But at the same time, it's like that's still a version of you. You got to honor that.
Right. So you got to honor that, right? And like I said, I know I'm going to be critical of this young woman, but my heart goes out to her as well because it is so clear that the struggle that is going on within her. Because I mean, let's start right here with what we see written on the screen, right? Creating your own masculine identity and embracing femininity as trans men. I mean, isn't that is such a bizarre description. I mean, it seems counterproductive. I mean, like at the end of the day, when I look at this makes me think of that book, In My Daddy's Belly, right? And I remember creating that video where I asked the question, if you have gender dysphoria, if you're a biological woman, how is carrying and birthing a child not triggering to your gender dysphoria if you really want to be a man? It just makes sense. And in this case here, I just feel that this young woman, which by the way, young women often can look like skater boys, right? You'd see this individual going down the street on a skateboard, and you probably think a young boy skateboarding, right? But this is still a young woman, and my heart breaks for her. But at the end of the day, I think what it was is there was a confusion, right? I'm not traditionally feminine, and I get that. When I get that myself, despite this beard, despite looking like a damn trucker, right? I can say that I acknowledge that when I speak, like damn ruby slippers fall out of my damn mouth, right? I've even had like, especially when I was younger, right? when I had more of that first redneck kind of look and stuff like that, people would have conversations with me and they'd go, you know, it wasn't until you spoke that I kind of got an idea. So I've acknowledged in my own life, I've always felt that my way of expressing myself verbally, even with my hands, tend to align a little bit more with an effeminate side, right? But I'm still a man. I'm not. I'm not a woman. And as Chris, as you and I once discussed in a prior stream, because we both as children had interest in behaviors that would be considered more traditionally feminine. I
Sure.
am just so thankful that I am not young. I am not a child here in 2025 because I just feel like my life would be completely destroyed. Chris, I'm going to throw it to you quick.
You give this person way more grace than I would. The thing is I'm sick of these people altogether, and you know, she sat there and talked about like it wasn't what I wanted to be. It wasn't this. I mean, this person, you know, you're right in the sense that there's obviously some confusion going on there, but because she is not understanding what she really is, and that is a woman, you know, and she's been led astray. But this simple fact is, she looks like she's probably in her 20s. It's like, honey, you're a big girl now, and my sympathy for you out the window. You know, you're an idiot, is what you are. You're a mentally ill person, and if you're not an idiot, you're a mentally ill person. And frankly, I tend to think because she has gone through several different incarnations of what she thinks it means to be trans, I think she's just a fucking idiot, honestly. So I
Well,
really
I
have no
also
sympathy. I really have no sympathy for her whatsoever.
Well, what really stuck out to me in regards to her confusion is she even messed up the her own trans language, right? She referred to herself as a cis male identity, which if she is, how can she have a cis male identity if that means that you identify as the gender you were assigned at birth, right? So she even messed up when it comes to her own language, the language of her so-called community. She messed it up and said, my cis male identity. By your own logic, by your own agenda, you do not have a cis male identity. You can't. They acknowledge biological reality at least that much, that you cannot have a cis male identity because you are not a cis male using your own terminology.
All this idiot is doing is identity shopping. That's what she's doing, and that's how I took it, Kevin. When I first
Yeah.
saw this video, I was like, "This is an identity shopper," and you know, that's why my heart does not go out to her. There is no sympathy. She's just an idiot. She's a fucking idiot, is what she is. You know.
Chris has no heart this evening, folks. All right, no,
No.
I was just. I remember what was a stream or two ago where I was like, "Well, Chris, you're being kinder than I would be." So we go back and forth, which is nice. Well, with that, we're about to move on to our last clip, folks. We are making this a little bit shorter this evening. And stay tuned because we're going to discuss what's happening next in regards to KC Reacts Live. But with that, we're going to go to a clip where I'm pretty sure neither Chris nor myself are going to have any sympathy for this individual. And I'm pretty sure that none of you will have sympathy for this individual either. This next clip is not necessarily a focus on trans men, but it is very much a focus on the indoctrination of young boys with the intent of shaping them into a certain type of man. So this is a female preacher with the pride flag, not even the pride flag, the progress flag, that hideous thing behind her. And just listen to how she describes what she does with her son and her son's best friend, and how she wants to groom this child. All right, let's jump into it.
Word became flesh and lived among us, and my body, your body, their bodies are home for the living God. Yes? Full of grace, full of truth. That is why I take my 11-year-old boy to drag shows in the summer with my friend and fellow church leader Kate and her 11-year-old boy. I want him to know that there is no wrong way to have a body, especially if you're a man. That bodies can be celebrated and played with.
Especially.
I want him to know that all bodies can shapeshift and be adorned with makeup and glitter. All bodies. I want him to know that there is no wrong way to live in his body, as long as his body is not hurting other bodies. Amen? I especially want him to know this if he turns out to be a heterosexual, able-bodied, and cisgendered man. I want to raise a boy who knows that he doesn't get to tell other people how to live in a body.
All right. I honestly, Child Protective Services, come on. How can we not turn this woman in for child abuse with this? I mean, first of all, that all bodies can be played with and celebrated, that's just all bodies. So all bodies can be played with, right? And then there's no wrong way to have a body, especially if you're a man. That's the targeting of men right there, because she knows that little boy, right? That's the grooming, right?
And you'll notice that she didn't talk about actual traditional masculinity in any sort of sense or form. She did not talk about that. She was talking about boys being dressed in glitter and makeup and all that type of shit. You know, that's what she was talking about. But she was like, if her son turned out to be an evil cisgender, which, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know who's watching, cisgender means someone who's just actually a male. But if her son turns out to be an actual male, probably heterosexual, how dare he disagree with someone who acts like, guys, I'm sorry tonight, I'm just in this place right now. How dare he act like a fucking freak? And you point that out, and I'm just in that place right now. I'm just like, I've had it with this shit. This stuff is so stupid. And people like this, especially these straight white women, middle class women, suburban women, are
she even has the haircut.
they're such a liberal.
Yeah.
Let me put it this way: these straight white heterosexual liberal suburban women are like a bane on our society right now, and that's exactly what she is.
On so many levels, I will admit, this upsets me. It enrages me. As I said earlier, I think I'm glad that I'm not a young boy this day and age. Because if I had a mother like this and I had the effeminate behaviors that I had as a child, I probably would have been drugged and then butchered. All because of this woman's need to feel special via her child. And as a man who's on a path of getting to know Christ and being a Christian, seeing that flag behind her, how is this not false idol worshiping? I mean, I just like, and it's not even a pretty idol. That's the thing. It's hideous. I mean, I will admit, this offends me on so many levels in the fact that this woman is attacking manhood. She's also doing, as many point out who are against the transing of children, To be honest, gay erasure, because this woman would be the first that if her son was effeminate in any fashion, she'd be having that child put on puberty blockers.
Oh,
And
no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And I'll tell you what, Kevin, not to cut you off, but the thing is that, she's showing exactly what she thinks by the flag behind her. But here's the other thing, and this is kind of like a rhetorical thing that I absolutely hate that I've seen some preachers do, and she did it. It's like they're looking for acceptance from the audience by saying, because you notice she prompted for amens and
yeah,
agreement and that sort of thing.
mm-hmm,
That is a rhetorical thing that preachers do that I hate. I cannot stand that when they do that. It's like, you know what? Get up there and say your piece and be confident in what you're saying. Don't look for agreement from the crowd. But, and
mm-hmm,
I mean, I've seen men do this as well in churches, and it disgusts me. And but she's doing that same weird sort of little rhetorical thing where she's actually looking for agreement from the crowd. It's like, aren't you the
mm-hmm.
preacher, you idiot? And so aren't we here to listen to you, not sit there and go, oh yeah, oh my god, we all
Mm-hmm.
agree with you, it's all so great. you know
Yeah.
um we're looking for teaching from you. We're not looking for you to seek our approval, because that's not how the student teacher relationship works.
Yeah.
And these weirdos, uh be regardless of anyone. I mean, I like I said, I mean, I've seen preachers do this, and rabbis as well do this, this weird little thing where they look for approval from the crowd. And it's weird to me. I
Well, it's
don't
because they
even
want to
get
know that
it.
they want to know that their indoctrination is taking hold. That it's working. With that, I do want to go to the comments quick because Vinny actually has two comments that I'd like to address. Once again, thank you, Vinny, for contributing. So his first comment is in regards to our last video. Basically, we've touched on this before, but with trans women. They are just feminists who think they can be better men than us. So quote unquote trans men, right? And
Mm.
they really, I think that is part of it, right? They think they can do being a man right. Which what they don't get is there obviously conflict is what it actually means. It is with what it actually means to be a man. We are different and different for a reason. Vinny then says, sometimes the devil will say facts or good things, but they are surrounded by lies and twisted words to manipulate people, especially if those people listening are sensitive. And that's true. I have seen
Yeah,
some
that's
of the
true.
sweetest
That
people
is
I've
true.
ever known. Some of the sweetest people I've ever known, I've seen brought into this insanity. I've seen them dragged into it because they had good hearts and they just wanted to be kind to everyone and they didn't want to upset anyone. They didn't want to make anyone feel offended. And next thing you know, they've been indoctrinated into this. And it's true. I honestly think though that in this case the devil, right, uses half truths, things that sound like truths, to get you to at least take that first step on a path to destruction. And
You
that
know,
is what I feel
you
these
are so
types of
right.
preachers do.
You are so right, Kevin. And and guys, just so you know, Kevin and I have had kind of an interesting back and forth on the pro-life issue. And Kevin is extremely pro-life. And he has done a lot to bring me around to that side. I'd say the only exception that, and I'm perfectly fine saying this publicly. You know, maybe the only exception that I would agree with at this point anymore is the life of the woman. But the thing is it's so rare that that's ever going to even be an issue that I don't think that it's worth even having an argument about. At least that's where I'm at right now. I might change at some point in time. I don't know, but and come fully onto Kevin's side. But the thing is like, you know, Kevin has had a pretty good heart about some of these transgender people, or at least he originally did, and I corrupted that.
The thing is, yeah, because
And
I thought about it. Yeah, yeah. Continue, Chris.
but
Because yeah.
my point is that, you know, it's like if you sit down and you really talk to somebody about certain issues and you get to listen to their point of view or whatever the case may be, just as much as Kevin got me over to a much more pro-life side than I was before, just the same as I was like, no, there is no reason to deal with this trans bullshit whatsoever, you know, and there just isn't, you
And
know,
I think, yeah.
and so it's kind of the same thing. So when you do go out there and you talk to people and you try to encourage them to become involved in this, or at least to become educated about this, make sure that they know, you know, that there really is no compromise on this issue. It's like,
I,
really, when it gets down to it, no human should ever do
mm.
this.
I
Adult,
and
children, doesn't matter.
And Chris, you definitely have helped with my path on that, just as I have helped with your path when it comes to abortion. And the reason why, Chris and I, well, for several reasons, Chris, this is about obviously trans, the trans agenda and its attack on on manhood. But I do want to touch on how Chris and I have been able to have these discussions. Chris impressed me with abortion when when he responded in a way that majority 99% of people don't. I was saying I usually often when people bring up rape, incest, life of the mother, right? When talking about abortion, I will say to them, all right, so if I were to grant you those three exceptions, would you be okay with all other abortions being made illegal? Now, I ask this question because this will tell me if they're just using the minority of cases to justify all abortions. And 99% of the people say no, they still want all other abortions to be legal. Chris was one of maybe 2 or 3 people I've ever interacted with in all my pro-life years who said yes, I'd be okay with all other abortions being made illegal. And that impressed me. And it really, I think, helped with our conversation and getting to where we are. And where, in regards to life of the mother, the reason I don't stress it as much is because it is incredibly rare. And most often, it's not even necessary when they do claim life of the mother. But also, as technology progresses, we are inevitably probably going to reach a state to where if there is a genuine issue of life of the mother, even as early as like a couple weeks, we can remove the baby and put it maybe in an artificial womb, right? So then there will be no excuse, even with the life of the mother argument, because of that advancement in technology. But with that, I want to move on to the trans and how Chris has influenced me because I was much more sympathetic. However, there's been a few things along with Chris that has helped me with that. Is that I'm not going to lie, the majority of the trans individuals that I had engaged with, including once a co-host at one point, eventually have pretty much all gone off the rails on me. For the most part. So there was that. But then one thing that Chris and I talk about a lot is I seek logical consistency, right? I like
Yep.
to be able to apply my logic, my values across the board. And as I started looking into different things when it comes to dysphoric conditions, I forget the exact name of this right off the top of my head. I always do. I usually write it down. But there is a dysphoric condition where people feel that they shouldn't have an arm, or they shouldn't have a leg, or they shouldn't have an eye. And they genuinely believe that they should have been born without these things. Dr. Phil actually had a woman on his show once who blinded herself because she believed that with all her heart, she believed that she should not have been born with sight. Now, these are dysphoric conditions, right? And if someone were to ask me, would you agree with letting people legally just cut off their limbs and blind themselves, go to a doctor and let a doctor do these things because they're dysphoric and genuinely, with all their heart and soul, believe this to be true? Would you let them? I would say no. I say no now. But back then, when I was more supportive of the trans agenda, it would have created that conflict, and it did. So now I look for that consistency, and no, I can honestly say I have to be able to rationalize my position. And if I don't support one dysphoric doing something to butcher someone who has dysphoria here, why would I support it here? I can't do that.
And guys, I mean, the thing is, it's like I hate kind of dehumanizing these people, by calling them it or that or whatever the case may be. I mean, I take no pleasure in doing that, but I just kind of feel like they've turned themselves into that, and it's not my problem. So I'm just going to, because it's like, no, you're not really a man. You, I guess, evidently don't think you're a woman in this case, as what we're talking about tonight. So I guess I'm just going to call you an it. I'll
Mm,
call you a that or a
mm,
thing or whatever the case may be, because it's like I sure as hell am not going to call you by the thing that you in your twisted mind have developed for yourself.
mm.
That's why I take that on. And I
Yeah,
think
and
that as I'm getting way more involved in politics now, you know, um, I'm going to take a very harsh stance on this stuff. And I recently put out a post, and I absolutely stand by it, which is that, if I am elected in the state of Missouri, I am going to make it impossible to change the sex on your birth certificate or driver's license. There is absolutely no reason to do that. I have looked into it.
yeah,
I've looked into the intersex issue and everything like that. There is absolutely no reason that that ever needs to be
yeah.
done
Well,
other
Chris,
than to
even
feed
yeah.
into this bullshit.
Well, even by their own logic, Chris, there's no reason to do it, right? Because there's a difference between sex and gender.
Oh
So if
yeah,
it's
but they,
sex,
but
exactly,
they like to
right?
do that, and I even got some feedback from somebody who was a conservative, who was like, "Well, maybe we should have something for gender on a driver's license or something along those lines." No, no,
Mm,
because the
absolutely not.
first of all, 20 years ago, the whole freaking world agreed that sex and gender were pretty much the exact same thing. They were synonymous with each other. They were
Mm,
synonyms. They weren't two different things. It wasn't until
mm.
gender ideology caught on
John
that
Money torturing those poor children,
oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
right?
It wasn't until gender ideology caught on that we even thought that there was somehow a difference between this concept of gender versus sex. No, they're the
Mm,
exact same thing. And I'll tell you what,
mhm,
I'll tell you what, but the funny thing is, a lot of these trans folks, they take the time to change their birth certificates, the sex on their birth certificates. They go before a judge, They get
Mhm.
it done, and then they're allowed. And I am stating how it goes in the state of Missouri, but they go before a judge, and they can get their sex changed on their birth certificates, and then they can get their sex, after that's done, changed on their driver's license. Well, that's sex. At least in the state of Missouri, we don't talk about gender, we talk about sex. So these people
Yep.
are
Same
saying
here.
that these people are saying that they've changed their sex. No, you've never done that. And and you'll never be able to do that. So um I guess I've just gotten a little bit more hostile towards all of this because I see it as a bigger issue to try to destroy our society.
Mhm. Oh
And
no,
that
absolutely. Yep.
and I our society as we see it. You know, the gay rights movement never really expected that. You know, it's like all it was like, yeah, two dudes, two women want to live their lives together. Whoop de freaking do. You know, and that was pretty much it. But these folks want to change how you see what a man is. They want to change what you see what a woman is.
Yeah.
They want you to be okay with men going into female spaces. They want you to be okay with them walking around slinging their dicks in front of your little daughters.
And a lot of
That's what they want to be okay. That's what they
yeah.
want you to be okay with.
Yeah.
And that is not okay. And we need to fight back against this stuff. And that is why I am trying to speak with such clarity and not be so nice about it anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
because
especially
that's what we
Chris.
need. We need clarity on this issue.
Absolutely. I mean, especially as they continue to target men, because men, in general, historically, this is the fact, and it's still to this day, we are the protectors of a culture, right? Men are, in general, the protectors of a culture in several ways. And in this regard, we have to take a firm stance here that no, you don't get to claim manhood. We aren't letting you take manhood. That's not something that's going to happen. You don't get to take some testosterone, grow some facial hair, remove your breasts, and call yourself a man. That's not what you get to do. And we got to be firm in that because as men, that is our job, is to be firm and guide, regardless of whether we're heterosexual, homosexual, whatever it may be. We are men, and that is part of our purpose. And we have to be firm when it comes to protecting, especially women and children. And the thing is, I think they're feeling comfortable targeting men because that with okay. So when we're dealing with this, right? Obviously, and we're going to have this conversation as to why we also think that trans men, so biological women, shouldn't be in male spaces. Because as people who stand firmly against, trans women, so men being in women's spaces, and also the targeting of children, we can have that conversation all day, right? Such as men in women's sports. We say, well, men generally, right? They have strong, their muscle development is more advanced, lung capacity, all this stuff, right? But when have we had the conversation about why trans men, biological women shouldn't be in male spaces? And I think it in that case, it goes back to that they shouldn't be in male spaces for their protection because they are women. They are women. And we do not want women made vulnerable in those spaces such as a locker room or a bathroom, because what feared is, what if a woman who believes she's a man and presents as a man walks into the wrong environment, and a man notices that that is a woman and decides to behave in a certain fashion against that woman. I do not want these women in male spaces for their protection, actually. When it comes to biological males in female spaces, I don't want the biological males in female spaces for the protection of females. And it's the same here. I do not want females in male spaces for their protection as well. That's where I'm coming to on all this myself personally.
No, I think that that's very fair. Honestly, I mean, I really do. I think that that is a fair way of looking at it because it is an issue. Most of these trans women don't pass, and if they do, they just look like little boys, and especially the younger ones. Um, but I'll put it this way. I think that we need to be consistent along the lines. Females do not belong in male spaces that are private, like restrooms, locker rooms, that sort of stuff. Males do not belong in female spaces that are private, like restrooms and locker rooms. They simply do not. And we've seen more of the male trans identified males. I prefer to call them that as opposed to trans women because they're not women whatsoever. I'll call them trans identified males. So we've seen more of the trans identified males going into the female spaces, showing their junk and everything like that to little girls and that sort of thing. Men do tend to be a little bit more aggressive. And so maybe that's why that we see more of that as opposed to as opposed to the trans identified females going into male spaces and showing that they're obviously women by showing their vaginas or whatever the case may be. But I will say, there are plenty of men who have talked about on gay dating apps and stuff like that these females are very aggressive at pursuing them. And if a man goes on to a gay male dating app and says, I specifically do not want to, be associated with these females, they'll get banned from that for transphobia. And, I mean, think what you may of gay dating apps or whatever the case may be. These men should be able to go on there. And if they're just looking for other men and that's all they're looking for, they should be able to do that without, having these, completely fucked up females deciding to interfere with that.
And that's the thing is, we need all men to really come out with this, to come out against this, like I said, and especially in my opinion, homosexual men, because I feel like homosexual men, they're going after men in general now, as we saw in these clips. But there has been an attack on homosexual men for a while now, as Chris has highlighted, especially when it comes to dating apps. Right? I have friends that are on the gay dating apps, and yes, they are even on the hookup apps like Grindr. And they will say in certain environments, the majority, not even half, the majority of people they'll see are actually so-called trans men. So they're confused women, right? Confused females. And they like sometimes that's the majority is actually trans, not even homosexual. And so I think it's all the more reason why, as men across the board, we need to speak up, but especially homosexual men need to speak up and say, no, we don't accept this. With that,
You know,
sorry, Chris.
one little interesting thing is the base mother, Elena, brought something up to me that I thought was kind of interesting, and she was talking about this female, because that's what she was. She was the female, and she was talking about her woes of, because she decided that she was a man. So what she was, guys, here's the thing that you need to understand. These are heterosexual women going after gay men. Okay? That's what they are. And that is disgusting. And so the thing is, this heterosexual woman was sitting there having this huge problem with the fact that she had a bad encounter with a gay man. And she made it public. She put it all over social media. Elena covered it, and she talked about multiple interactions that she had. There was one dude that claimed to be gay that actually was willing to have sex with her, but then stopped because he was like, this just isn't doing anything for me. Well, you're gay, dude, so of course it's not, you know. So,
Yeah.
anyway, but you're obviously also a virtue signaling prick. So, you tried it. All right, good for you. Yay. Woke props for you, you know. But Elena covered this stuff, and it's disgusting. I mean, to me, as gay people, we should be outraged by this stuff. We should be every single gay person should be outraged by the transgender movement.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you
Because
what,
let's face it. Sorry, you continue that thought, Chris, and then I'm gonna. Yeah.
I'll tell you what. The last time I spoke before the Missouri Senate, I made it entirely about gay rights when I was addressing the transgender issue.
Yeah.
Because, from my point of view, it's not only about gay rights, but at least I, as a gay man, can come out and be like, no, this is wrong. This is all wrong. This is totally bastardizing the gay rights movement because they were freaking parasites that came in and took on to our movement and used that, and now they're using it against us in order to indoctrinate us and try to basically turn us into straight people again. And guys, I don't care if you have a problem with homosexuality or not. That's not what I'm talking about here. But I will say, I will guarantee to you, homosexuality is not a choice. I didn't choose to be homosexual. Kevin didn't choose to be homosexual. This is what we are. And the very fact that these women, in this case, but also these men that are going after lesbians, are doing this sort of stuff sickens me. because it's totally dismissing the reality of what it means to be a homosexual person.
Yeah. Honestly, Chris, I feel like that's actually like it's the ultimate goal, as we've discussed in the past, is actually more along the lines of transhumanism, right? There is no heterosexual, there is no even homosexual. People are just genderless, freaky looking creatures, right? I think that is ultimately the goal at the end of the day, is to erase what makes us different, would erase what makes us unique. You know, the irony is they are using diversity to create conformity. And that is what we see, right? They're claiming diversity, that you want to respect this identity, that identity, when the goal, though, is to only have one identity. And that is this disgusting looking creature that has no gender, no sex, you know, whatever, you know, even though those are the same thing, that has no true identity of their own. That is what we see them pushing towards, and we do have to stand up. With that, we are almost at an hour and 20 minutes, folks. Thank you for joining us for our 20th episode. We're going to go into a little bit of what's happening next, but Chris, do you have any final thoughts regarding this transmania?
Yeah, the main thing, guys, is that, you know, I mean, if I'm elected, I'm going to do whatever I can to make um being trans as difficult as possible in the United States, especially in the state of Missouri, because that is where I'm going. I started off with the kid stuff, but I kind of realized that the stuff dealing with adults was still a problem, because it gave kids something to look up to, if you will. And so that I mean, I am against transgenderism 100%, regardless of age, and I'll do everything that I can do to make sure that it's as hard as possible to do that in the state of Missouri.
Absolutely. With that, Chris and I do have news. We are taking a bit of a break. We'll be back in about a month's time. We know it's just kind of a need to recharge those batteries. On a personal level, I'm looking forward to it. I personally feel that I've been, you know, called to that myself. Looking to work on myself a bit in many areas of my life. Maybe I'm having that turning 40 this year, you know, crisis. No, but no, I just it helped.
Oh, that's right,
Yeah,
Kevin. You're having a midlife crisis
I
now. I
know,
forgot
right?
about that.
No, no, no. I just, you know, I've been so active on social media for so long. I think it's time, and I'm consistently active. I think I need to step back for a little bit, for you know, for at least a month, and really kind of reconnect with who I am as a person without social media. Right? I used to know that person very well, who I was without social media. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Starting tomorrow, you will not see me active on social media, folks. You won't see me posting. You won't see me commenting in any fashion. I am going to be taking at least a month's break from social media. And then Chris and I will be back, and we have plans. I will have a better Wi-Fi connection, that is in the works, and we will have great new content for y'all. So, Chris, do you have any final thoughts there? Want to add to that?
Yeah, guys, I really think these breaks from social media are important. Because I'm running for office, I really can't take that sort of break right now, and I'm not going to be able to do so for the next, well, over a year, because my election isn't until November of 2026. So I've got a lot of time ahead of me. But you know, if you are able to take these little breaks from social media, I mean, I really do think that they are kind of important And you do kind of get lost in social media because you create, I think we all do this to a certain degree. You create a social media persona that's not necessarily you, but then you prop up that persona with other things, you know, by what you say and what you do and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And it becomes exhausting after a while. And I think a lot of people do that. And so I think that's why tonight I decided to be so bluntly honest because I'm with Kevin. I'm tired of propping up any sort of persona. You know, I want people just to know me as who I am, you know, and all of this trans shit, as far as I'm concerned, is stupid. And I want nothing to do with it, and I want to do everything I can do to destroy it.
Yeah.
So, and so I mean that's kind of where I'm coming from. But man, I totally respect you because if I could take a break from this stupid crap, I would too.
Yeah. And I mean, to be full disclosure, also though, I am looking to possibly during that time, be a guest on other people's platforms. But even then, it's not me in any way in charge of the wheel. It's me just coming in saying hi and bye bye. I don't have to promote anything. I don't have to do a damn thing. And I'm looking forward to that. It's
Well,
someone else
and
letting others drive.
a little teaser for folks. I do have a big podcast for us to go on, Kevin, that is interested in us.
Nice, nice.
And you, you
Oh,
you you don't know about it yet.
I do not, folks.
So
I do not know about this. Chris and I are going to be discussing this now. With that, I do want to wish you all good night. God bless. I will see you in about a month's time. Well, we will see you in about a month's time. But you can see and interact with Chris more on his social media and come out in support of his campaign.
yeah,
And I
guys,
will, yeah.
go to barrettformo.com. So BARRETTFORMO.com, and you can sign up to volunteer, you can sign up to contribute, whatever the case may be. So anything's appreciated. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, have a good night. God bless. And for me, I'll see y'all in a month. All right. Bye, everyone.
Take care.